and a young man I got to play pickleball at the same time with, Alex Capecelatro.
Just got back from CEDIA Expo and I barely have a voice.
And I want to be clear here. I did not play pickleball with Alex in any way, shape, or form. I am not to his level. I was in the beginners section as our buddy John Siaka put together a really, really nice afternoon. And you can get a hold of him next year and play pickleball with us.
Seriously, you can't be serious. That ball was on the line. Come on. I don't believe this.
We are all back from CEDIA Expo 2025. What do we see? What do we hear? What did we learn? One of those things, AI, of course. Where does that belong in the industry, and where do customers want it in their homes? And also a report out saying that, well, more homeowners want more technology. They're just not getting it. How do we fix that? All that and more next on ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 499, recorded Monday, September 8th, 2025. Home AI. This is ResiWeek, the weekly look at the residential side of the AV industry. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. Mr. Scott is somewhere. I don't know. He might be still stuck in Denver. As far as I know, we'll get to why that is a interesting joke in a minute. First and foremost, Arlen Schweiger from Rise Media Strategy. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And a young man I got to play pickleball at the same time with, Alex Capecelatro from Josh.ai. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Just got back from CEDIA Expo and I barely have a voice, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Well, yeah, you both did, which is the joke about Matt being stuck in Denver. He did not attend. I was in Denver for a short amount of time, which is the part about me and Alex playing pickleball at the same time. I want to be clear here. I did not play pickleball with Alex in any way, shape, or form. I am not to his level. I was in the beginners section. Alex was in the pro section as our buddy John Siaka put together a really, really nice afternoon of fun and camaraderie. Raised money for the CEDIA Foundation. So I'm not going to ask anybody any questions. It was just a good time. If you're going to CEDIA next year, hit up Siaka. I'll post his cell phone number for all I care. And you can get a hold of him next year and play pickleball with us. So speaking of CEDIA, happened last week, Thursday through Saturday. Alex, Josh.ai, obviously an exhibitor there. So we'll start with you on this. Overarching question, what did you guys see? What did you hear about the industry? What did you hear and see around the show floor last week?
I'm not even sure where to begin. It was, as you guys all know, if you've been to Expo, a lot of stuff. There was a ton of education, a ton of booths, a lot of people talking about AI, talking about lighting, talking about various AV things. I spent probably 90% of my time stuck in the Josh booth. So most of what I saw was what we're working on and hearing anecdotally from people about, what else is going on. But I did get to walk around. I got to do the Yellow Acoustics demo, which was pretty awesome,
yep.
And a few other things. So I wish I could just say concisely what's going on, but I'll say the industry is strong. Companies seem to be growing. I know numbers might indicate that the show is either flat or maybe even down a little bit, but it didn't feel like it was weak. It definitely felt like a very busy trade show.
All right. I did pull some. We do not have numbers as of this recording, which is roughly 3:00 Eastern on Monday. Pulled up last year's numbers. Alex mentioned that 12,300 verified attendees last year. Again, as of this recording, we have no idea how many of those are compared to this year. Arlen, you had a change in the last year from the last time you hit CEDIA's show floor. A year ago, you were doing what I was doing, which was running around and interviewing folks. This time around, you've moved over to Rise. You're now representing companies and trying to get folks like me to come see them. But you got a little bit more of a taste than Alex did because, again, as he said, he was stuck in the booth. What did you see in and around the show floor this year?
Yeah, I would say I was, I wouldn't say I was stuck with my clients, but I was around our clients, which this year meant a lot of AV demos, which I guess it sounds like I saw more of than Alex, although I did not get to see the acoustics. But I think, for me, it was Ascendo, Mad VR Labs, Movia, and, these are all brands that were associated with the SR7 booth at the show, the Soundroom 7, that $1 million home theater.
Yeah.
So that was just something that was really kind of cool to see. And I think it lived up to, the expectations. When you talk about a $1 million theater, you're putting a big spin on it. You're going for something that, companies are not really used to it. I think we've seen demos kind of certainly tailed off in recent years, as lighting and shades and energy management and other control stuff have come to the fore. But between Sony, between JBL Synthesis, between Soundroom 7, I was in Soundroom 6 a lot, a couple of the other sound rooms, and I was also around Richard Sharshan, who wrote the coffee table book Home Theaterology. And that was, again, it was partially about his love for home theater, but it also included a lot of educational content and inspirational content. From what he told me, business is going very well. We've got several projects lined up for this year. And so it really gave me a good indication that, dedicated home theaters, I think, are back to being a very appealing sale for integrators. I think it's kind of going back to a little bit of their bread and butter, but their bread and butter is tastier these days, we should say, when it comes to audio and video. I mean, it's just kind of amazing, the Atmos demos that were going on.
Yep.
The Ascendo had I think it was their new 264-inch infrasonic subwoofers in that room, along with like a dozen other speakers and all that. So to me, that was one of the bigger things that I spent time with at the show, was just the demos and the AV. And I'll include the LED walls within that. That's been a growing category. And, seeing that again at booths like Kaleidoscape, it's the technology is becoming more remarkable every day.
All right. I actually want to get into some news that happened last week. And Alex, I'll start with you. When Mitchell pulled these stories, there was a couple different came together. One was that you guys at Josh.ai, you announced the new AI XOS. It weaves together AI intelligence, according to the press release, seamlessly through audio, video, and whole home control using touch, voice, and text interfaces. Now, that came at the same time that Google was announcing Gemini is coming to Google Home. It's replacing the previous assistant, which was, according to some people, a bit more intuitive, but this is more AI driven. Alex, I'm going to start with you on this, and I understand where you're coming from, but I still want to ask the question. Where do homeowners want or need AI in their control systems or in their environment?
Yeah, let me give a brief synopsis of how I see the big tech companies kind of playing in the space, and then I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing, which directly answers your question. Last year, we had multiple people coming up to us saying, Apple announced that they're doing a reconfigured Siri. It's going to be built into the new Control 4 stuff and other control systems, and you guys are going to go out of business from the Josh.ai perspective.
Really quickly, how many times in the last 10 years has somebody told you you're going out of business?
It's pretty much every year when some big company makes some big announcement.
Just making sure.
We all see what Apple's done with AI, and it's certainly killing them in the market. They really haven't gotten anywhere. No. And then we see Alexa had announced that they're going to be putting all this AI into Alexa Plus or Alexa Pro, whatever they were calling their kind of paid model. And that has also fallen flat. We haven't seen much. And so now Google's saying the exact same thing. They basically copy and pasted the same press release that Apple did, the same press release that Amazon did, except now it's Google's press release. I always say, believe it when you'll see it. Believe it when you can use it. If they come out with something great, because look, they have amazing engineers. They have the capability to do amazing things. But I don't see them really focused on the smart home the same way that, those of us on this podcast and those listening think about it day in and day out. I can tell you Gemini is amazing from an AI perspective. Gemini is smart. It's got vision. It's got reasoning. I'm always excited when Google's doing new things. But Google Home has been a major disappointment from many different aspects. And from the professional dealer's perspective, I think it's fundamentally flawed for us because it's built for the consumer. They want to sell a smart speaker for someone in a condo, a dorm room, a single bedroom apartment. They're looking for that mass. They want to sell 1 billion units, right? They want to move a lot of volume. And so they're not as focused on integrating this in with everything in a deep way. They certainly have high level integrations. They own Nest, so all the Nest products, they're going to have some aspect of Google and Philips Hue and various devices. But when you're a professional installer putting in a reliable network and a reliable system, I'm not convinced that Google really cares about what we do enough to go deep. So now to get to your question, we announced and what we showed off in our booth as fully working features and demos using AI across security, lighting, music, scene creation, and a bunch of other things. And to give you an idea of what this means, we're not just pushing AI to say AI is cool. I get it. It's a buzzword. People are excited about it's, novel and it's exciting, but that's not how we think about product. We think about product from the standpoint of how do I make the customer experience better? How do I solve problems? How do we provide something that the dealer can go to their client and say, this is something that is going to make your life better. And oh, by the way, you're not going to find anywhere else. So the first thing that we showed off in the booth, and not to make this a total plug, but I think it's just a cool thing that other companies should probably start copying. We integrate with a multitude of door stations. When someone rings a door station, we're all used to getting a notification on our phone, and then you can see the video and you can talk to the person. But what if you're in a meeting? What if you're preoccupied? What if you're in the kitchen cooking? What we do is we use something we call as Josh Vision, where we look at the camera now. We look at the camera, we use our AI to analyze what it sees, and then we send you that as a text notification on your phone. We send it as an alert on your wall-mounted touchscreens, or we just speak it over the speakers in the ceiling. And so what you would hear if you're in the kitchen, for example, is a ding dong, someone's at the front door, followed by a description of what it sees. I see two people. They appear to be a male and a female around, mid-30s. One's holding a bottle of wine. And you can follow up by saying, oh, let them in. I'm expecting them. Yeah. And so the idea is that in that case, AI is helping to give vision to what the cameras see to make your life better. There's so many things that I can share we did, but the one that was most exciting is when we survey dealers, when they build out custom scenes, good morning, good night, stuff like that, these scenes get used every single day. It's a big value prop. It's part of why control systems add value. Otherwise, you would just go to each independent app. So the value is there. But then when we took a look at the data, about half of our dealer deployed systems have 0 scenes created. And on the Josh system, it's probably easier than any other system to create a scene. You can do it simply by typing natural language. You can say for your goodnight scene, in natural language, turn off all the lights, lock the door, stop the music. It's really easy to do. But when we looked at what was going on, it needs to involve a conversation where the dealer and the client sit down. You talk about, what do you think you want your good morning scene to do? What do you think you want your good night scene to do? They have to be on site to test it out, program it. There's a lot that goes into it. And so we said, let's use AI to solve this problem. The first thing that we do, Josh will look at all of the devices, their capabilities, and what locations they're in, and it will recommend about 10 to 20 scenes that it thinks you might like. And so you go into the little scene UI on the app, and it's going to say, oh, if you don't have any scenes here, we think you might like a good morning scene. You might like a good night scene. You might like an energy saving scene. And when you go to create that, it's a one tap, it adds it. You can then easily modify or delete it if you decide you don't like it. But it builds a fully comprehensive program scene with conditionals. It's pretty amazing what it does. And so that's meant to give the homeowner access where they can just say, oh, I would like a good night scene, but also the dealer can just tap, one tap, they get the scene made for whichever scenes they want. But then where we went further is we said, what if someone wants a scene that we don't recommend? We don't know everyone's lifestyle. We don't know everything that's going on. We built out a voice command, and this is what we demoed on the show floor, where you can simply say anything in natural text. So for example, you can say, hey, I'd like to have a scene where I'm going to have some clients visiting. The wife is from Brazil. The husband runs an insurance company. I went to college with them. I want to make sure the dinner's relaxing, but also kind of upbeat. We're probably going to be in the living room and the dining room. It will then take what you said and in about 3 to 5 seconds, fully generate and program a scene. AI generates an image, so it looks great. It recommends voice commands that will trigger it, as well as nice responses. But that scene's going to hit lights, shades, music, fans, fireplaces, you name it. And we're trying to tell dealers, don't expect you just do that and you're done. You still want to go in and fine tune it, verify it does what you need. It might recommend music at a volume that's a little higher, a little lower than you want, so adjust it. But it gets you 90% there, 95% there with just a voice command. So really, it's about using AI to solve these problems that we're learning. Why aren't they adding scenes? Why isn't security better? What can we do to make their life just a little bit nicer? And that's what I'm excited about with AI.
Yeah, AI in general, regardless of home application or wherever, gets you 90% of the way there, and that's just my own 2 cents. Arlen, same kind of question, is where do homeowners want AI in their environment?
So kind of like what Alex was saying, I see it as sort of this, dual group where you have mass consumers and then you have custom integration consumers. And I think for the mass consumers, they're going to look at something like a Google Home or, Google Gemini, and they're going to say, well, what can we tinker around with? What can we attach this to? Like you said, a smart speaker, that might be all they're looking for. Whereas to really optimize AI like this, it needs to have that integrator involvement. It needs to have that mindset of people who have been in this business for 20 years who know how to program a control system, that now they're just able to do it at like this hyper level in like radically short speeds, like Alex was saying, to come up with these responses. And it's amazing if you go on to, just chat GPT, you could type something in, it spits it back out at you a second later. It's crazy. One thing with consumers is it's just mainstream. They just, you can't go too overboard with the features. So, my guess is that Google Gemini it'll be fine for some people, but, they might just use it for commanding music, commanding TV, whatever, as opposed to some of the things that Alex was saying, like, if something happens that you're coming up the driveway and AI programmed into the system says, okay, well, we're going to open the garage door. When the garage door is sensed that's opening, we'll have some music preset station go on at the same time the lights come on, shades kind of go down because it's evening time. All those things happening at once. The climate's turned to certain temperature. But, I think integration clients they're going to get the best rundown as well of like, hey, here's what you need to run this system. And also we know that you don't really want to know too much about it. You just want to make sure that it works. So we're just going to give you this, best practices with the handoff. And, aside from like doing whatever commands you want, being able to tweak them, like, that everything is programmed in there for you.
Our next and probably our last story here comes to us from CE Pro, a new joint venture from the National Kitchen and Bath Association, NKBA, and CEDIA, the organization, not CEDIA Expo, reveals what a whole lot of people have suspected. Homeowners are now the real champions of the smart home tech revolution, especially, kitchen, bath, and home design. According to the report, 3 out of 4 homeowners are the ones requesting technology integration, while only about half of designers, or just a third of builders are proactively offering it, according to CE Pro. Projects that include smart home systems are committing roughly 20% of their budget, resulting in average whole home tech investments exceeding $41,000. Top homeowner priorities: convenience and security, followed closely by energy efficiency, comfort, and entertainment. Alex, start with you on this. Alex is also a member of the CEDIA, the organization board. When you look at a report like this and you look at just coming off of CEDIA Expo. Quite frankly, how do integrators take this information and leverage it to get into homeowners who obviously, according to this survey, desperately want what these integrators are offering?
I kind of interpreted this as two different possibilities and two different opportunities. The first one is, as someone building a home right now, I can tell you I'm advocating for technology as the homeowner, not necessarily because I love technology, although I do, but because the others simply don't even bring it up. The architects don't recommend stuff. The designers don't recommend stuff. And worse, when I try to ask for something in a very sort of, casual way, or I don't know the right way to put it, but I'll give you an example of a specific one. I said to them, we would like to have a fireplace that is going to be triggered via Lutron and Josh, and therefore we can simply walk in and turn on the fireplace when we want. And also at night, when our good night scene runs, it can make sure it always turns off. The architect, the designer, the builder, nobody fought us on it, but they also didn't know anything about how to get it done, including the integrator. And so what was very surprising to me was the designer effectively did some research and recommended a fireplace that seemed to be smart because it was advertised as having the ability to be turned on and off via some digital controller.
No.
Well, that digital controller was IR. That was not going to be built in a way that could easily work with a contact closure.
Nope.
I sent it over to the integrator. The integrator was a good integrator, but not sure if it would work and not really sure how to find out, or they certainly didn't want to put in the effort, which surprised me a little bit because they're a very good integrator. So I then went directly to Lutron and said, have you guys seen Lutron relays triggering this fireplace? And they came back and said, we don't know, but give us a few days and we'll figure it out. They came back and they said, not possible. We can do a toggle, but we can't do a discrete on and a discrete off. And as we all know, a toggle won't work if you want a good night scene that's going to turn it off. Yep. You need to know a discrete on and a discrete off. So as the homeowner advocating for what I wanted, I ended up having to go find research and swap out to a different fireplace manufacturer. And it kind of goes back to the survey. I think the homeowner is advocating for tech because the other trades just aren't experienced. They don't want to do the research, or they're afraid to make a decision that might be the wrong decision. But also, they don't seem to lean on the integrator as much as maybe they could. And the integrator, I don't think, takes that stance of saying, I'm going to be the expert at this area. And so, in this particular project, the builder and the designer said, hey, integrator, you tell us what the options are for lighting, shade, speakers, and we're gonna pick from the options you give us. And that all works, fine. They say, we're gonna go with this type of lighting. They, have these options. The designer picks amongst those options. Everyone's happy. But it's interesting to me that there's not more of the integrator, architect, builder, designer, some set of that, those trades come together saying, hey, how do we solve this fireplace opportunity issue? How do we solve a latching relay for the front door opportunity? How do we solve a nice security package that won't look ugly? And these are all things that I've personally, as the homeowner, had to kind of fix and advocate for and change, because so often they either don't want to do it or what they're doing isn't going to be ideal, if that makes sense. So I go back to the survey. I think the opportunity is the dealer can speak more to the homeowner and help the homeowner understand decisions. But I also think we as a trade and dealers in their local markets need to build relationships with the other trades to say, hey, I will be your technology professional advisor. I will help make sure that if you want to have smart fireplaces, smart, accessories, smart, kitchens, whatever, even if it's not the thing I deal with day in and day out, I will work with you because it's important to this project, as opposed to saying, I do theaters, I don't know about that other stuff, which seems to be what is happening from what I can tell.
Arlen, same kind of question is how do these dealers, leverage this information, quite frankly, and to Alex's point, educate these other trades, become the AV cheerleaders that the industry needs.
Yeah, well, I think especially with interior designers, if they're looking at flow of a home, they're looking at potential resale value, and they're looking at the important spaces in a home. Obviously, integrators, might be looking at living rooms and rec rooms as, okay, these we can really go with. But, when it comes to home values, the spaces that are kind of the most important are the kitchen and the primary bathroom. I think most people know that that's where a lot of the investment goes, whether it's new construction or renovation. And I think, integrators have done a great job of moving away from selling specs to selling stories. And so when they can get that kind of vision into a homeowner or potential homeowner's head about, hey, you can walk into your primary bathroom in the morning and, the lighting will gently fade up. Your music or your NPR or whatever will come on while you're taking a shower. Whatever, all sorts of other things that could happen there. Same thing with the kitchen, where we're gonna layer in this amazing lighting system so that when you're preparing meals, it looks different than when you're cooking to when you're serving and all that stuff. And the problem continues to be where that connection is kind of needs to still be bridged between the designers and the integrators. I think for the integrators, they need to do more of a job of attending events like KBIS to see what's really going on out there and how they can connect that to their business, how they can foster relationships by looking at who's there. And again, thinking about, like Alex was saying, like what's going to solve this problem for the homeowner. So I would think that, between that, what's going to solve the problem, and hey, what are your dreams for this space? When you're talking to integrators who are always dealing with, homeowners' dreams for spaces, they just involve technology. There's every reason to think that they would want those same kind of smart devices or music or video or whatever in, the main places in the house like that.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, that'll do it for us. Thank you both so much. Alex Capecelatro from Josh.ai. Thank you, sir. How do people connect with you or Josh.ai?
Best thing is just head over to the website, which is Josh.ai. From there, you can see all of our socials. I respond on pretty much everything, as does my team. So happy to be in touch, and appreciate the conversation today.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Arlen Schweiger from Rise Media. Thank you, sir. How do people connect with you or Rise?
Sure. They can go to the website at risemediastrategy.com, and my email they can find me is just Arlen at risemediastrategy.com. So thanks again for having me today, Tim.
Absolutely. Thank you guys both so much. Mr. Scott will be here back next week. At least he better be, because I will not be here. I will be heading to IBC in about 24 hours time from this recording. So you can check me out as I go over across the pond to Amsterdam to check out all of the European version of a broadcast. But go by the website, if you would, please, AVNation.tv. That is AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others. If you want to know what I talk about on the commercial side, you can listen to AVWeek. But there are so many better ones to listen to, like State of Control, Women in AV, as well as our higher education podcast, EdTech. So go by the website, avnation.tv. It's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hi, this is Jennifer Goodyear
and Erica Carroll
from the Women in AV podcast, where we are encouraged by the incredible stories of women in AV.
Listen in on fun, empowering conversations as we chat with inspiring women, breaking barriers and creating their own path in the industry.
Check out Women in AV on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.